many different fronts. And that's going to cover everything from product development to a purchase order. We're also going to talk about manufacturing in our factories. We'll do questions and answers. So if you have anything, everyone's got paper, just jot any questions. Just jot down your thoughts, and we can answer them towards the end. We'll have an open question and answer. So with that, Nate's going to kind of jump in and start talking about, on product development. And as I was saying before, there's a process that we want you to understand what it's trying to get from point A to B, and that's really what a big part of today's about. So why don't you jump in?
All right, Jared, thanks. So, steps for initial purchase order. We're in our final phase of our FDA label. That was submitted to Silica Labs, which is one of the few that work directly with the government. They also handle a lot of, if you get certification from Silica Labs for your product and your factory, then that alleviates a lot of paperwork for the retailers. And paperwork, I'm talking, in the back I have a Kroger vendor submission form and a Costco submission form, 36 pages, 100 pages. So all this stuff has to be in there to procure a purchase order. HACCP plan is hazard analysis critical control points. Pretty much every food product now has to have a chart of how that works and where your critical control points are in a process so that you can manage that. So we wrote that for my previous company, Batter Blaster. We've amended it for Nate's Pancakes at our co-packer in Thousand Oaks. Insurance requirements, big liability mainly is the issue, food safety, and when you do the vendor submission forms, you have a lot of boxes that you need to check on product liability. Policies are up there. We didn't want to list them out because there's a lot of policies to get through in the retail chains. These are all boxes that need to be checked. The reason we're going through it now is because a lot of times you wait, if you're new to this business, which I'm not, you wait until you get a meeting and then let's say the buyer says, yeah, we want to do this, but here's your vendor requirement list. And I would say 60 to 70% of small companies can't get through that vendor list. It's too much. So I look at that ahead of time and then actually try and develop pricing based on those vendor submissions and those policies, because there's a lot of hidden costs that you don't normally see. Case labeling, product labeling for the club stores, which is Costco, BJ's, Sam's Club. They have their own case labeling and their own product labeling. So on top of our UPC labeling, they have their own internal system. So that all has to be fulfilled. And that's what we're doing right now. So that's in the works. Like I said, we have two different, uniquely different retail vendor forms. One is a club store variety. One is mass market, which is Kroger, 3,200 stores. And we'll go into kind of our direction with both those different types of retailers. So the next page, new flavors, products. We're looking at, I think you saw some of the new flavors and ideas. We were up at Abco Labs. They do a lot of formulation for us. They do a lot of blending for us, and so they bring in raw materials and blend. So we tried strawberry, blueberry, and banana were the three that we actually signed off on with some tweaks. And then we really have a laundry list of other flavors that they have developed for an oatmeal line, which translate to a similar batter oatmeal. So a lot of research was already done, and so they're working with those flavor profiles for our product. Some natural, some artificial. We go through and decide what we can live with and what we can't. So we will roll those out, about 18 months to get those. We want to get a solid foundation with our first original flavor. which that flavor is what you're smelling and tasting is a heavy vanilla flavor. And we're happy with that.
That's really
Very good.
Yep.
Good,
We
thank
don't
you.
need the syrup.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's the kind of the point, right? If you don't have to have it, because you look at the kids, they don't always have syrup, right? They can just take it and eat that and would be okay with it. I hope. So expecting product availability, those three flavors that we talked about beginning of 2016, and then we'll continue to work on flavor profiles. Also, the flavor profiles that we would like to do if we secure the club store business is we want to do holiday flavors. So when we sign up to, and we're accepted with our vendor package, what we don't want to do is we don't want to go into the club stores for 6 months and then we get into Christmas and they say we need your space for Christmas items. Because then you go out and then you have to come back in and you have to do a whole new program. And I've done it and we don't want to do that. We want to be a 365-day product in these retailers. So we'll determine, all right, what's your Christmas flavor for next Christmas? And that way we stay in. What's your, Thanksgiving or whatever it is. So we'll develop that right now. So that way we stay into the club stores and not go in and out. That's just what you do not want to do. Product development overview process. The 1 minute omelet was a product I worked on for Subway in 2007, and we made some really good headway. So it was basically an omelet, 1 minute microwave, came out. I think there's really an interesting growth period on that. The guacamole is another product that we worked on because putting it in the can, we were able to eliminate the oxygen that oxidizes it. It was like a guacamole spread. So I had worked on that for a big company too, and we're getting that back up and going. Our pre-development products, which are really fun, again, APCO is developing those with us, the brownie, the cookie, the cake. We're going to try and keep the gluten-free going. We'll see how the formulations go. But those are all refrigerated items too. I mean, once we decided that we had to go refrigeration, once we get the distribution, you just keep pumping refrigerated products. There is still some testing on some shelf stability of batters. It's a long process to test that out, so we still are working on that, but that's not on the forefront of what we're talking about and showing.
What's this long mean when you say long process timeline?
The minimum of 6 months, more like 18 to 24 months to get all your labs back, and then do shelf testing. I mean, shelf testing is really what it is. It takes as long as it takes. You can accelerate it up to 50 degrees, 55 degrees, but is that a real test? I mean, you're really pushing it. So it's time. I mean, food is time. So shelf life testing, you have different intervals of where your testing levels are. For this product, we'll talk about the microbiology report. The only issue that we had, I spent probably $100,000 on testing with Batter Blaster, so we really got to the bottom of what could possibly go wrong with this product. And that was an organic product, so you had a lot more, you had heavy microbiology issues because the product was coming in organic, which was dirty. A lot of microbugs, not something that you see, but the counts were huge. Coliform and things like that. So what happened in the can is it would develop lactic acid and give off flavor. So when I reformulated for Nate's, it's a commercial product and it's very clean, and it's the cleanest I've ever seen. And so when you start with clean products, you get a longer shelf life. And then to keep the shelf life, there's potassium sorbate as to help We're really looking for control of pH and water activity. So that's what we're fighting all the time. But this has been a fantastic report. I compared it to Battle Blaster, and I was like, wow, I can't believe I got 120 days on Battle Blaster. So we have two labs. ABCO Labs is the development lab, and ABCO also is a 300,000 square foot processing facility that does all kinds of products. And then Siliker is a real heavy-duty microbiology lab that we use. So factory and production. Southern California, the facility is a co-pack facility I've been working at since 2005. We manufactured about 9 million cans of Batter Blaster there. I personally put in all that equipment in 2006. So it's all there. We are currently getting everything back into position. 40 cans a minute is what we're going to strive for at that facility. I'm up there all week in Thousand Oaks, so I pretty much live there at that facility. ABCO Laboratories is in Fairfield. Again, they're my formulator, and also very good friends of mine, and about 320,000 square feet with room to grow. So they are building the production room currently, putting in all the wiring and drainage and everything that we need for equipment. Equipment is about $600 to $1 million to do 90 cans a minute. So we're putting the shell together, refrigeration also, because we need refrigeration. So that's been very exciting, actually. Great facility, labs, quality control is fantastic. Indiana, that's going to be our own flagship factory. 400 cans a minute, so 5 lines. And Mr. Wade has broken ground on that.
The plans.
Yeah. So, 2017, that's our ultimate goal, is to get, what we really need to have is 2 facilities west coast for distribution, and then we really need something in the middle of the country, and that's really going to be helpful. So we'll try and use all 3 facilities ultimately. Sales and marketing, buyer steps, product is finished, marketing plan to the buyer, which basically means what are we going to give them as far as marketing in store. Depends on what kind of program you want to do. Our program is demo, no slotting fees, which means I'm not paying for shelf space. I'm not paying for coupons. We'll do demos, because no one knows what this product is, even though the category sold 9 million, but still no one knew it. The numbers were, when we ran IRI data, 0.6% knew about Batter Blaster. In this category, I should say the waffle pancake batter charged in a can. So we had 0.6% of the shopping public knew about it, but we had a 98.9% rebuy. So an amazing rebuy number, but we needed 2% of the shopping public to understand what it was, and you're immediately at $40 million a year. So education of the product is really what we need to do for marketing. Pricing, we just finished pricing a couple days ago. Samples are made. We started production again at the factory. We had some modifications on our packaging, so we worked all that out. We had spray rates that had to be fixed. So samples are being sent. What happens is samples arrive, they look at pricing and marketing, and then they have group meetings, so all the heads of all their divisions sit down and do a cutting. And then final approval, submission for PO. So that buyer steps can take 3 months, but we don't want that to happen. So we don't send product to them. We actually make sure we have a meeting and get in front of them. They always want you to send samples and then they'll call you. Checks in the mail.
Yeah.
The nice part about it is my relationships with these buyers, they remember the category and they made a lot of money on Batter Blaster category, so they're really willing and able. So we just have to be finished on our end and make the right choices of who we go to. Online sales expected in February. We wanted to get a better price to send product through the mail. We had a lot of trial and error. It was really expensive for that first round to go out. It was $45 to send 1 can or 3 cans. It filled a void, but then we kind of had to pull back and stop and say, that's going to look bad. Let's come up with a better plan. So we started that with the online store, and what do you think? Time? The end of the month?
Yeah, probably end of February.
End of
I think
February?
we just need to wait for some stuff.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, so our supply
Supply
chain.
chain catch up.
Granted, the online sales are not really what we're all about. We're 99% about getting into the right retailer, because that's where our volume is. Brokers, retailers, we hired a brokerage group that I've known for 16 years, very hands-on. A lot of the food broker network is, there's 50,000 products and they go to a meeting and you pay them to go, what about this? I didn't like that. So as a broker group that I know that's hands-on, that we work with every day, we gave them guidance on where we want to be. So they set up all the meetings with their connections. They go in and make the presentation.
Can you tell us the company name of that?
It's Sinclair Group.
Sinclair Group?
Yeah, LLC. Dwight Sinclair. And Chris Reiser is our local guy. And
And who'll be
yeah,
handling the online, who's gonna be taking care of that?
Joseph Wade.
We are. It's all internal.
Yeah,
Okay,
you set up a store, then I supply him.
do the stores see that as a conflict or no conflict at all?
They don't see it as a conflict, especially because the pricing is so much higher because of the cost of shipping. So that's why it's not my favorite model, but we need to just have it available for people to get in their hands. So that's why we're going back to that. Retailers, like I said, our goal is to go into the box store, which is Costco, Sam's, BJ's. The main reason is it's volume immediately, and we already have the facilities to handle volume. At the Thousand Oaks facility, we can do 400,000 cans a month to get started. So the volume is wanted to get started. It's better for us to go in a bigger model than to go into smaller chains. It's better for the factory and it's better for us in general. So the box stores, because we can promote with all the demos. So we do a huge demo program, max it out, demos. And the visual in the club stores, you have a whole palette of products. So the visual's huge, rather than starting with a retail chain where you maybe have 3 facings of one, and then what do you do with it? Right? It's on the shelf, but you've got to market externally to get anyone to know what it is. So our goal is to club store, get a following, go into like the Kroger's, the Safeways, the Vons in a second tier.
And that's also just following on the heels of the success of Batter Blaster.
Right.
His previous experience knowing that this product is about, in the beginning, it's about education. People don't necessarily know what it is. So there's no better platform than the club stores to actually facilitate that. And they were very successful on that ground, so we want to follow suit.
It was our first customer, actually, for Batter Blaster, and that was scary because that's a big first customer. And yeah.
What happened to Batter Blaster? Are they still?
Batter Blaster lost funding at the end of 2012. They had some companies, some venture capital that led them into believing they were going to get the funding, and then it fell out at the last minute. So their problem was they expanded to too many markets too quick and then had to go back I was part of it until 2009. But their last round of funding was, they needed 15 million to make it to the next level, which I certainly thought they were going to get.
With that concern already, is that something you're going to have to address with that same group of buyers again? Are they concerned, or is that no longer a concern, or why not?
It hasn't been when I've spoken to them. They made money off it, and they don't care. There's so many products. They just fill it with another product. But they were absolutely knew about it, had worked with it, so it's been a bit of an easier inroads. What we're not going to do is we're not going to go after every chain out there and everyone who says yes, and we're not going to go to the chains unless we have basically 30% more money to fund that shelf. So with Batter Blaster, we wanted to see what would happen. Is it a successful category or not? So we kind of took everything, and which was great because we got in everywhere. But in hindsight, if you can't fund your shelf space, then don't get it in the first place. So we're not going to make that mistake. So club stores I talked about a lot. Nate's Homemade umbrella, we switched everything to Nate's Homemade. Some of these cans are older cans, but the new logo, Nate's Homemade, because we're going to add a lot more products under that umbrella. And we didn't know that at first when we started making pancakes, but as things progress, we're going to do everything. So that's kind of it on my spiel. Purchase order financing, Wade's going to talk about?
Yeah, I'll take that one. So essentially the way that the current PO financing has been set up is it's up to $3 million right now. And the way that works is when the company gets in a purchase order from a store, you go to the financing partner and you say, we got the purchase order, we need to fund the materials. And they'll fund up to 80% on day one of that purchase order. They take the purchase order, they receive the funds, and they cut a check once they come in for the 15% balance. And they keep anywhere between 5 and 8% as their profit margin. So the company doesn't see the money come in until it gets ready to produce the product and that the purchase order has been secured and signed off by all parties. So there have been questions on why is it not on the balance sheets, because we don't receive it until we actually need the money. And then it's usually paid back within 60 days between product being developed or manufactured, shipped, and then 30 days net pay. And kind of how that process works. That's all on that one.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Sounds wonderful.
Questions? Yeah, so we can open it up now. Questions people have, feel free to jump in. And
The PO financing, do you feel like that will be adequate for the immediate needs, or is that a short-term, mid-term?
It's actually a reserve. I mean, we have adequate financing to do what we need to do, but it's there more in case there's added growth that we need to fund faster and we need to use the money for marketing instead. So it's not actually used to make the product, it's being used as a reserve, just in case.
Is there any of your inventory items that are considered long lead items, or are most of them readily available 30 days or less, and you can obtain all your inventory that you need?
We're under 30 days. It's 4 to 6 weeks top, depending on which exact item it is.
We have blanket purchase orders to long-term ingredients. So like at Abco, they'll floor 100,000 pounds of raw material, and then they'll deal with the long lead times, and then we pretty much have a 14-day window to produce the cans. We went to a piston barrier can, completely custom. They did, CCL made it 12 years ago. My concern, my mistakes with Batter Blaster is I didn't use this can and we didn't want to spend the money to have it customized. But Batter Blaster, we couldn't get all the product out, right? We lost 2 ounces in every can. So over a long period of time, it's expensive, and people still think there's product in there. And also, Batter Blaster, we gassed right into the batter. Now we're gassing just the piston to push it out. So you're getting a huge yield out of this can. But it's, the lead time to order at least the first round of cans, they had to build the line. spec everything out. So the can looks like a regular can, but there's tons of work that's gone into it.
10 weeks initial lead time.
Why a can and not a carton like Pillsbury is?
Because if you look at the success and the novelty that we had with Batter Blaster, I wanted to recapture that. The fun, the novel. I'm not into selling batter, I'm into selling fun. So I wanted to keep that because I already made the inroads, because I'm not going to get into a store with batter in a bag. They're like, why should we bring that in? You're going to compete, or a dry mix where you add. Why are they going to add another one of those in a small company?
The fact that this product was so innovative and that families made it together was, in no uncertain terms, the lead attribute of the Batter Blaster. I mean, hands down, that was what people, didn't matter who the group was, what the age group was, people were drawn to it because it was so unique and it was different, tasted good, and as it turns out, we've actually developed a better tasting product, same mechanism. So we're really happy with where it is.
Fun.
Yeah, it really is.
Fun. Yes, Sal.
I have a question on the online sales and the marketing for that. That's coming up February pretty quickly here. How are you advertising online, and what are the methods that you're going to use to kind of keep that name out there? How are people going to find it?
Good question. I feel like it's something we need to have for people who are already interested, that a way to get them product. That's kind of all I'm looking at it as.
Yeah, well, I do a lot of online shopping. Mark might be able to tell you that.
Yeah, I've heard.
I'm friends with the UPS. One of the things that I notice, like on Facebook or the other social media, is they always have, if you're researching something or you've purchased something, they tend to bring it up on your page when you come, and I don't know what that involves. But I find, I buy a lot of things off of those things, like that's something that I've been looking for and then it pops up there. I don't know, I know that there's an expense to that, but I was just curious as to those kind of flags and things like that.
It's paid advertising is what
Yeah.
it is. And, as Zane was saying, the online store is really to facilitate, I think, kind of early, investors and shareholders, people that are interested to get the product, but it's not going to be where we're going to spend a lot of our resources, because where we're spending our resources and time are really around the club stores and, the retailers. So that, it's not that we won't be spending a lot of time there, but I think where we would see ourselves down the road might be, getting yourself onto Amazon Fresh or some of the other people who have an established infrastructure and work off of that versus being, selling product on our own.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Okay, I was there, and will we have set terms, like for Costco or the supermarket, like you're selling Rayleigh's or Fred Meyer or Ralph's? Are we going to have 30-day net or 60-day net or 90 days? Or are we going to have different prices for different guys?
We're going to have 30-day net is what we're looking at for Costco. We don't want to give up any percentage to go, 2% net 10 or whatever the case may be.
We have the option to do -1 10 days, but we don't want to give up that 1%.
But you won't have a different price for Costco versus...
We will. We'll have a different price for Club Store compared to, let's say, Rayleigh's. So a Rayleigh's can might sell for $5.99 or $6.99, depending on... I can't control what they want to put on.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, if the broker goes out and sells Rayleigh's,
Yeah.
so 20,000 cans or something, he says net 30, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I come out of that field in the supermarket years ago, and there's deals. Like guys like Costco will give you, try to do 90 days on you. And where the normal account gets 30 days.
Yeah.
And that's not good if it leaks out to the trade, you're cutting deals. And
Yeah.
that's what I was curious
Yeah,
about.
no deals, nothing over 30 days. And everyone I've worked with.
So we'll have a set
Yeah.
pricing
Yeah.
structure. Okay.
Yeah, and we'll have a store pricing that we're shipping, freighting direct to the store, and then we'll have a distributor pricing on a 12-pack.
What's the hurdle left to get your distribution and ultimately a store? What's left? What do you see as a...
Nothing. I think we're good to go.
Okay.
You know, we hired a broker, we got our materials, our sales materials, we fixed the can, we fixed the spray rates. I'm pretty confident that next week we'll be in front of, well, I know on the 17th we're in Kroger National in their innovation team. And then in the next 2 weeks, I've already talked to buyers at Costco, but talking to them and then trying to make them see you. We're into the product, but trying to get it. So we're green light.
Okay.
Yeah.
With the success of Batter Blaster, did you see any competition emerge? And if not, do you see any competition emerging in this category once it does hit the shelves?
The only thing I ever saw was General Mills, because I worked in 2008. General Mills was interested in buying part of the company. Their whole concern was food safety, so they gave me an outside microbiology group to work with. So I worked with them, and we made a lot of headway, but we needed money, and they said, hey, we're so bloated, we don't know what we want to do with you guys, but we want to keep working with you. And we said, you know what, we're going to go raise our $4 million, we'll come back to you. So a couple of years ago, they put out a squeeze bottle. It's nowhere. They did a test market. I think they probably pulled it, because they'll do a $30 million test market. Pull it. They were doing a test market up in Michigan and all that kind of the backyard. But I think what they saw was there was no fun, there was no novelty. It was really a terrible, terrible presentation. I mean, talk about setting yourself up for failure. So that was the only thing I ever saw that was a refrigerated batter. There's a mom and pop refrigerated frozen batter.
Batter World.
Batter World.
Which is really more of a, I mean, listen, any pancake or waffle product is competition, but I mean, they come into different categories, and they're more on the specialty side.
Yeah.
You know, and
10 stores. And then we compared ourselves to ounce, was like the Vans waffles, frozen waffles, the organic ones. That's because we got a pretty good ounce-to-ounce comparison when we went into the buyers. And yes, that's what you will turn to, the frozen, if you don't have the other ones. But that's a huge market, and it's good for us to have that option.
So your price point retail is like $7 a can?
It'll range depending on really, if it's a twin pack at Costco, it'll probably be either $9.99 or $10.99.
Per can?
For a twin
two?
pack.
For a twin
Yeah.
pack.
And then,
So it's between 30 and 40 cents a pancake?
yeah, I would say your retail is let's say it's $5.99 for a single.
What would your profit margin be on that?
Well,
What's it cost to produce one?
if we,
That's a hard question.
It's a hard question to
we
answer
can,
because the
because
buyers will come back at us if we say.
and
Right,
the
yeah.
retailers, we don't.
Approximately.
You try to sell it for a 30% margin to the buyer.
I have some questions that were posed to me. These aren't all mine, but what about the buyback, 22 million shares? What funds are being used to buy back the shares? And would that be taking out of the general pool or shares or?
It's over 3 years, so it's not going to be one lump sum.
Okay.
They are shareholders of CRRA prior to the reverse merger.
All right.
They were essentially the majority shareholders at the time.
Okay.
There's been some questions on affiliate status with them, and that's kind of why we're buying them back. And it's a 3-year process.
So right now the outstanding share count is 71 million approximately.
71.3.
So it'll be reduced by 22 million?
Essentially, yeah. And right now, the talk is with them is they'll be canceled once a year.
Now you
So
can
at the
do
end
it.
of 12 months, they cancel. At the end of the next 12 months, cancel. At the end of the next 12 months.
Now you have authorized shares of 300 million. Do you see ever being able to go that high with that, or?
I hope not, no.
I hope not. Also, there was talk of China on November 18th.
Yes.
How's that
China was, it's something that we're looking at, and then I think October, November, we're hoping that US distribution would kick in a little bit sooner. So, but we've kind of taken a step back, and we just want to focus on essentially the club stores and get the product in from a financing standpoint. Like, that's how I always look at it. It's from down to a per can cost.
Okay.
And so we just kind of want to focus, get it out into the Southern California area, grow it up to Northern California. There's the map back here of the Costco locations, and you can kind of see if we base our location in California and Nevada, how we would grow outward through the Costco distribution centers through that system.
What is the status of the reported $3 million in non-dilutive financing that was mentioned in a
That's the PO financing that we discussed. That comes in
purchase
as
order
cost.
financing? Got it. What are the biggest risks you see for the company going forward? Well, it doesn't sell, right? It's going to sell.
Killing Nate would be number 2.
I thought this was Nate's clone, actually.
Yeah, work on that.
You gotta have a backup.
Have we got insurance on dates?
Yeah. Oh, we should do that. I mean, that's what we should do with tomorrow. Yeah.
Some of these I'm not sure if you answered. When will the flavored pancakes be? Let's see.
I think Nate answered that about 18 months.
Yeah, okay.
First quarter next year.
You'd mentioned GM. What is the exit strategy? And I'm not quite sure that that's been clear. Is the exit strategy to grow the business and ultimately sell it? Or is it to grow the business and keep it going long term? What is the strategy?
The
Well,
strategy,
yeah, go ahead.
the strategy that we kind of talked about is for over the next 5 years is working up to a NASDAQ. And then that's kind of the exit strategy for a lot of people. And then it's become such a massive entity at that time. Either somebody larger can come in and take it out, like ConAgra or something like that, or it becomes its own, and it starts, once we move it up, we can start picking off smaller food companies and bringing them underneath our brand. It's kind of like the drug and alcohol rehab company that we worked with a few years ago. They moved up to NASDAQ, and they started picking off smaller rehabs and putting them underneath them and just growing their margins, is essentially. So you're growing top and bottom.
So you're saying, depending on what happens in the future, is how the company will evolve?
Yeah, I mean, the goal right now is NASDAQ or New York, depending on which listing looks better. But then again, if somebody like a ConAgra or a GM comes in and offers something you can't pass up, yeah.
They'll all come check it out, just like they did. ConAgra, Friesland Foods, General Mills. If you get some market share, they'll, merger and acquisition will probably contact you, and then usually dies after that. But no, they'll look at food safety again and see if it's a market they want to be in. And so I assume that'll happen.
You mentioned CRA. Could you explain the affiliation with that?
That was just a shell that we had nothing to do with it beforehand. Before Nate's reverse merge into CRA, I don't know anything about that.
Okay.
What the company did or what their
I'm not
operation.
familiar with that.
It was just a ticker symbol before we reversed it and changed the ticker to Nate.
Okay.
Reverse mergers are a faster way to get on and less money involved.
You said, it's a fun thing to do and, it's kind of
Novel.
novel. Have you thought about maybe promoting this with young children?
Well, young children don't buy it, so
But they do use it.
their mothers do. So we've targeted the mothers with small children.
Well, I'm just thinking of the National Pancake Breakfast sponsored by Nate's, and all the kids are out there doing their
Well,
thing.
I think you could, but you need a very big budget to start doing it.
Yeah.
Let's have a couple more questions. What's the timeline for the FDA approval?
It's not so much that the FDA is going to approve the label. What's going to happen is Silica's going to say you checked all the boxes, I give you a green light. And it's in the works right now. So I would say, I know it's fine, but it's a precautionary measure. So the next week, probably 2 weeks.
Good year.
Yeah.
Torrent Energy is developing compound butter and pancake waffle syrup. What is the goal of the transaction? Possible partnership, acquisition? That was
Well, we have the syrups over there that we've kind of been working together. It's kind of like, it's essentially me and Nate kind of coming up with different ideas outside of a can and just kind of programming for marketing and developing it.
Okay.
And the online, you know,
It's
the
more for
online store.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be something that we'd be looking at retail side.
Yeah.
And just one more question. We'll be able to take our dividends in shares or rather in cash?
That's a dividend reinvestment policy. That is typically the way most shareholders are, this is probably a little more detailed, but most shareholders are held in DTC. So we don't actually even know who the individual shareholders are. We just get one list of DTC. So those are sent to DTC, any cash dividends, and then DTC sends them to the broker. So if you wanted to do a dividend reinvestment policy, that's something you have to set up with the broker between yourselves, and we wouldn't have anything to do with it. But it is a possibility to happen, yes.
Are you prepared at this point to identify the first target or the first customer or the first store or where you plan on doing first? Is that?
Well, we plan on going to Costco first. Kroger, we have
California.
Southern California. I've already had correspondence.
Is that a test for you or is it actually?
No.
Okay.
No.
So it'd be just, that's the first opportunity because you're here.
Because I had really big success with that market
Okay.
too.
Are they looking at it as a test or no? Or is it
No.
just, again, first opportunity?
And it becomes more of a logistics from there because we want to internally control the logistics instead of outsourcing it. So as you look at the map of distribution centers, you'll see kind of where we want to grow. Southern California, Northern California, Arizona, Utah, Washington. And then as we build the factory in Indiana, we can add Illinois, Maryland, New Jersey, Atlanta, Florida, and then figure out Dallas and Laredo.
You make one success story in a region and you're green light to go all the way through here, but then also Mexico, then possibly China, Canada, we sold to Canada, we sold to Mexico. So I have a pretty well-paved map through it with the category, and the category was basically Batter Blaster. So.
Would the Costco thing be in the refrigerators or would
Yeah,
it be on the?
refrigerator, unless they tell me different, but full pallet refrigerator. So, you know, open boxes, very colorful, 2-packs, and they basically
Behind the doors.
behind the doors. We'll strive to get end caps, so the ends of all the, you know, you pay for that, but it's worth it. And then we'll do end caps and the demos on the same day, so it's right there.
I'm going to suggest that the transparency that we've seen, or at least that I've seen, has been very appreciated. The fact that you're very open with these town meetings has been absolutely, as far as we're concerned, as at least us as investors, it's been a breath of fresh air. Are you going to continue to do this, continue to communicate? Are you going to open a blog or anything to questions and answers? This format feels good, and the management, you're doing a great job, and I got to applaud you all that this has really been nice change compared to what normally happens in the OTC marketplace. So on that side,
We do plan on it.
Yeah, no, we've talked about it and, you know, it started out in Vegas. This feels like a much better geographic.
That was more of a product launch.
Yeah.
More of a-
But I mean, this is, you know, we talked about it probably here, possibly New York as well, you know?
Yeah, the ideal situation is we do one a quarter and then kind of move it around different regions to allow other shareholders or interested parties, not necessarily shareholders, to come and just kind of involve the same thing. They're not necessarily, we call it a shareholder meeting, but like the way I kind of look at it, it's more of this is the product, I can ask anything you want, we'll answer as much as we can. And you know, these are the products that are in development, these are what we have for available for testing, or tasting, sorry. And so we would try to do one every quarter. The blog is a little bit more difficult just because it is more of a daily maintenance where it's easier for us to receive emails or calls with questions. And then we just go back out and do a Q&A through an 8K and just answer everybody because usually a lot of people have the same question, they're just worded a little bit different that we receive. So that's why we really kind of use that more for the 8Ks outside of this.
I noticed that you have a phone here. What is that?
It's just a conference call. Some people want to
So
be
some
able to just
people
listen.
did call in?
Oh, yeah, we've been doing keeping.
Okay, would that be available like on your website or anything that you can?
No,
go
we're
back
not.
and
It's
listen
not.
to?
It's not being recorded.
Okay.
It's just. This is the first time we tried it, so we didn't
Got
even really kind of
Well,
announce
no,
it. We weren't sure if it's going to work.
Okay.
I got to tell you, it's appreciated.
What's the time frame for getting distribution in the big chains?
We gave a green light this week to my brokers.
Well, we just finished pricing, what, 2 days
Yeah,
ago?
yeah, we're just buttoning up
Are we
everything.
close with Kroger?
I have a meeting with Kroger on 17th of February. My goal is to get into Club Store before Kroger. I would say, Kroger has the availability of 3,200 stores, but you're going to go into a region of Kroger.
They'll just test a section.
Yeah,
Or
maybe
go
they'll put us
national.
in Fred Meyer, right?
Yeah.
Well, but I don't want to do a test. I'm over the testing. I sold 9 million cans of testing. I don't need to test. I'm just not going down that route. So, large orders, club stores, demos.
And the other, kind of tails into that is more on expense side, cost side, is, what tails into Jeremy's too, is the Costco model allows us to do demo marketing, which is much more cost effective. And then as we grow into like a Walmart or a Target or a Kroger, you're using that brand recognition that you developed in Costco into those stores without having to create and market and create the brand awareness.
Yeah, but in the Northwest, Fred Meyer is big.
Yeah.
Yes.
And,
We did well with them.
Trader Joe's.
so they would be deal one to.
Yeah, it's all about, for me, and we all have different reasons why we're going into this model. Mine is for production purposes.
Yeah.
I want to know every week what I'm producing at this factory so I can staff it. Wade wants to know because it's all based on the money we're spending. Jeremy wants to know because he needs to know where to direct the marketing. And so if we can all three focus on those things, we're not spending money and excess time out here.
Well, you mentioned Costco because they're big, and each store could move out a lot of merchandise.
Yeah.
Same way with like Fred Meyer, because they have huge stores with everything under the sun sell in there.
Yeah.
So they would be ideal for
It's all about
big orders.
It's all about what kind of marketing you can do in there too.
But you're going at, we want to go after the big guys first, right?
Right.
Yeah. And a limited amount of big ones so that we can produce.
Oh yeah, one customer first. If I can just do Costco and move through the regions,
Yeah.
the less paperwork. I don't want to chase a pallet that went out somewhere else to Atlanta and chase another pallet. And
Yeah.
a pallet doubles the price of the can. And I'm not doing any of that. Been there, done it, and it's a pain. And you have to hire someone to find those pallets and those checks. Yeah. But it's fine, you can do the big guys first, and then have the money coming in, and you have your distribution down, and then you can start taking off some other retailers.
Step by step.
Step by step.
Is there financials available?
There is, everything that we have is on our OTC website, so Nate's Homemade. You can look at all the SEC filings.
Okay.
So everything's there.
When do you book revenue? Is it on delivery or is it on receipt of the cash?
Well, I don't know exactly how Wade set it up, but it was always on, when they sign for it, then I book it then. So until it gets, and this is me, I don't know, Wade may have different accounting practices that he wants to use, but for me, when they take ownership of it is when it delivers and they sign for it.
Okay.
Because you're on usually a third-party carrier, it's their responsibility, a third-party carrier, when you book the sale, basically.
It depends on the policies and on the type of sale that is made. Right now, the company is in sample mode, according to GAAP. So you don't book the sale until cash is received and product has been shipped. Once we're out of sampling, you go into what is actually the business of the company. So you book the sale at the time the purchase order is received, and it's countered as a liability on the balance sheet. So it's until it gets shipped. Once it gets shipped, then you debit your liability and you credit income.
And then the dividend that you've suggested to pay, that, I know that was a range,
Mhm.
but the cost was also a range. Now that we've defined a little more of the cost, does that dividend become any more definable at this point?
No.
How's that, Ron?
The only reason it hasn't, we're keeping it as a range for right now, just until we can, for the next 6 months, we get the first purchase orders in and we kind of can gauge exactly what we're forecasting is versus actual, and then we'll narrow it down too. But even then, once it's still narrowed down, it's still going to be a little bit of a range depending on a lot of other factors. Like, for example, margins are higher at one store than they are at another store.
Okay?
That's the best answer I can provide.
Why was the 10Q filed late?
It wasn't actually filed. It was filed on time.
Okay.
So essentially what you can do is, a 10Q is due, and then you can file what's called a Form NT, which allows another, for a 10Q, it allows another 5 days of business. So the company took advantage of those extra 5 days, just to be able to file it. A lot of it is, we're on the OTC, we have an auditor that's a Big 5 auditor. They're the 5th largest auditor in the country. So essentially what happens is we have the same filing date as a New York Stock Exchange company who does not have the option of filing the NT. We get pushed back. So we are usually, as OTC, you're usually the last for the auditors to review when you're at a bigger auditor.
I just got an online question real quick. Partnership with Tren, I'm sorry, I don't know who Tren is.
That's all.
Okay, what is that relationship, or is that a,
It's development for products for the online store, basically.
Yeah,
As
outside
far-
of the can.
Outside of the can product, anything,
Gotcha.
yeah. So it's a development, I'm able to develop things for Wade, I'm able to develop more products up at the Thousand Oaks location. And things that don't actually necessarily fit in Nate's genre, I'll develop for online sales.
Gotcha. Perfect, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Do you have an expected date for sales in Costco? I don't know if you mentioned that yet.
No,
Yesterday we were like,
yeah, I mean, no, but it's a weekly thing. We've made contact, but we frankly didn't have what they needed finished. We've gone above and beyond what they really need. I mean, we've done the mock-up 24 box and all the cans, and I mean, but it just happened in 5 days. So I've had contact with the buyers just to fill them out, so I feel good about it.
they're waiting for it.
Okay, the
I
most-
got in trouble because they were waiting for it.
The most-
Was that the same buyer that handled the Battle Blast
Yep.
category?
Yeah.
The most leading question I can ask, which is a lot of anticipation from a lot of people, is what do you believe that first purchase order should look like revenue-wise or total sales-wise if you had to give it a pretty good wag, and that's all I'm asking for.
We're kind of building out, we had a meeting at 11 o'clock today, and we're from 11 to 1 in case you saw the signs. And a lot of that was, since we just finalized the pricing, we finalized a lot of these last details in the last 5 days, as we started working on cash flow. So we don't really know 100%, so a lot of this is kind of our guessing, and we're basing it off what we're being told the hurdle rates will be at a Costco. So we're kind of expecting the first order to be between 50 and 70,000 cans.
Okay?
And that's kind of what we're projecting.
Is that just the fill-the-shelf rate, or is that also the second round of
That's
having?
that's just Southern California, one division, initial launch at 50 to 70,000.
So that's not the backup order then, that's just the initial fill-the-shelf?
Yes.
So that could potentially be twice that, just because you're trying to fill the shelf for the next 30 days?
Correct. What we've done from a projection side and cash flow side is we are, now that we know where we're kind of projecting 50 to 70, our initial supply orders
Yep.
are for 100 to 140.
Gotcha.
And then,
You always have to be producing for the next order.
No,
I think we'll be aiming to produce, for example, 2 months ahead. So we'll be producing now for 2 months from now.
You bet.
And kind of as we grow out, but it also becomes the hurdle for growth. Because we go to 2 divisions, we jump up. And so now supply costs have doubled. But we don't see that revenue for 2 to 3 months.
Have you started producing anything yet?
Yeah,
Really?
yeah.
Can I ask what kind of production are you currently doing right now or
I
anticipation?
do small runs just to test equipment, make sure staff. We
have one test coming up.
yeah, we have a larger test coming up for finished goods, finished products.
So essentially, we have one test that will be running a full day. And
Yeah.
what we anticipate a full day to run, perfect, will be the first time we'll run that. We're hoping to do that. I think there's no February 25th. We get all the supplies in.
It's yeah,
We're just waiting for CCO.
the can manufacturers, because we had to build out this can line, which initially everyone wanted us to pay for up front, like $800,000. So they all flew in, the executives, and
2
said,
weeks ago, we met with them.
yeah, and I said, well, I'm not doing that, you guys are gonna have to figure it out. So they came and did a factory tour, and they were doing business with the factory that I make product out of. And they decided they would pay for it, but they would put it into a cost in the product.
Amortized over a million cans.
over a million.
Good.
Yeah, we're not paying anything out front.
We're trying to amortize everything we can.
Yeah, yes, sir.
And, hold on, sorry, one thing, and kind of along that line, is the monthly burn rate, the cash flow is really, that's kind of where we kind of focus on. So essentially, we focus more on the financial, the cash flow, management, logistics, whereas Jeremy's able to focus just on the marketing, he's supposed to focusing on sales and product. And so kind of where we come back into is, at times we kind of butt heads on this, is we have no overhead. The only overhead that we pay for on a monthly basis is to maintain the filing and filing requirements. Everything else is a variable based on a per can basis. So our overhead is around $7,000 a month. Probably, I think it's in the filings. It's about $7,000 to $8,000 a month is probably what our monthly overhead is. Everything else, everybody else gets paid only when the can gets sold. Actually, take it back. Only when the cans get paid, not sold. When they paid, then everybody else starts seeing cash flows themselves. Yes.
Yeah, I was curious, how big is the factory in the valley? Like square footage and how many employees?
Well, the total factory is, I don't know, 125,000 square feet. I take up, the building I'm in is 17,000 square feet. The actual production part of that is in 3,700, the line. The big issue is space for incoming supplies and outgoing. The intermediate where you actually run production is really fast and it's compact and it cranks. And
How many employees does that take?
it takes 10 to do 30,000 cans a day, 35,000
It's a
cans
400-minute workload per day. Is kind of how we base it off.
Another conference question was, who is the online distributor? Have you identified that?
It's work between us through Torrent and Nate. It's essentially what it is. It's us taking it off Nate's plate, and then we'll handle the logistics of doing that. But it's really, that's why it's not being used really as a marketing or sales tool. It's trying to be more as
So it's in essence yourself, and you're going to fill it as necessary.
we buy the cans, so it's essentially we buy the cans at the same rate the hospital, and then we resell it on. That just provides added cash flow back into the business.
And I can just deliver to him and go about my business.
Or you make me drive up that.
That's right. And make him drive up.
So am I going to be able to buy a case today?
Not today.
Not today, because I didn't bring a case, but yeah, soon.
So, like, we're just waiting for the big can delivery so we can run the line all at once.
Yeah.
And then make sure we work out any cans.
Once that starts, we're good to go. But it's the real final details.
Because right now we haven't run a 400-minute day yet, or
Yeah.
enough to actually see every step of the machine running at once to make sure there's no issues that pop up. So that's kind of what our final testing is for.
Yeah.
So what's the shipping unit for a single can in a case? 24?
Through the mail? Oh yeah, for what is it? Big bots 24, shipping
24.
12.
12, right.
Or do you have assorted cases?
No.
So you're just
12
gonna have one
pack
big-
and a 24 pack.
24 pack.
Yeah. It's a really heavy case for Costco. But that's what we did before. I'm just pretty much mimicking what I'd done before that was successful.
price tag, I think it's $986 a pallet for Costco.
What's the difference between your former product and this one?
This one is, well, the main difference was the organic.
That was organic.
Yeah, it was organic, and it was a detriment for me in the end. It was great to offer it, but because of the uncontrollable micro loads and the supplier chain, I had fluctuation in the pricing all the time. I had one egg guy, and the price was whatever he said it was because it was my only supplier. So one order would be $9 a pound, and the next order would be 22, and you suck it up and you lose money. No, I just wasn't going to do that. You really, to be successful, you have to have commercially available product, and it holds, and even commodities, so you can hold some pricing.
When you mentioned the eggs, this came to mind. Now that the price of eggs have actually doubled in California almost, how is that going to affect the price per can?
Well, it doesn't, because I pay a price from Apco Labs for the final formulation. We sign off on it, and if they've made a mistake, they eat it.
Is that a one-year deal or a 6-month, or what's that deal? What's that
No,
contract?
we usually do a blanket order, so I would say 100,000 pounds.
I think this was
250,000 pounds. Yeah,
for the first blanket.
for the blanket order. So it's usually done in a blanket order.
Okay.
They'll notify me early on, but it's all commercially viable stuff. So you don't have one supplier. That's, so you can always, and they have wiggle room in there. So they're making 30% or whatever on the
Well,
powder.
essentially, we told them what we want to pay.
Yeah, we
and they
needed a
sourced
price. So we gave them a price what worked for us, and
So what I'm hearing then is there could be some additional margin once you open up your own factory versus where you're at currently.
well, everyone has huge margin on what they're doing for us. So yeah,
That's good to hear.
yeah. So
Yeah.
everyone makes their
There's a huge margin.
There's
from-
huge margin on that we're paying out right now because it's just because of startup, and then until you start hitting volume and bringing those costs down, because the factories will pass on the costs of volume, but only volume. So yeah, there's a lot of margin. There's margin in the powder. I mean, everyone's making margin on the powder, so they're shipping powder into Abco. And Abco's making their 20 or 30% on blending the products. And then our guys 30 cents, on making the product. So volume cuts a lot of that down.
Well, now I'm happy about your dividend answer that hasn't been nailed down yet. So that can be flexible either direction, it sounds
Right,
like.
because we are going to be able to narrow our margin or increase our margins a lot. At the first 12 months, the margins are essentially non-existent.
Yeah, it's
Just because of the
just
growth.
You're on a losing path.
Once we stabilize on growth and the margins actually grow, but that's based off a 3 to 5 year forecast. And we are working on that projection. We don't have it right now, so it is something we will probably provide once we finalize it, because we have to give it to certain investors anyway. And once we do that, per 8K, we have to disclose the information as well.
And the pricing we go out to our stores with is not necessarily the pricing they're going to sign off on, right? So we have our targets, and we want to stand by our margins, but there's negotiation in that. And how are we going to move more product? Is it a cost issue, or is it a marketing issue? You really have to look at that, because I think we should sold our product too low with Batter Blast, and we left too much money on the table for everyone else, and I don't want to do that again.
Have you ran into any issues with faulty pistons?
No, actually, I haven't. What happens with the pistons is you have to buy 180,000 pistons at a time, and you have to put them in the can within 3 months or they warp. So what we've done is CCO buys the pistons and puts them in the can, so we don't have to take all that at once. We can bring in as needed, but the pistons have to get in the can in 90 days.
So
you're not worried about customers buying this and then returning it because they can't get the batter out correctly?
No, and that wouldn't be the piston, that would be the gas and plug. So, what you do is you have a check weigher on the line. So basically 2 grams, 1.5 to 2 grams go in here, depending on how full the weight is. I get 20 ounces, pretty much 98% of the way. So it's pretty visually, you can see what's going on. And so 2 grams, 1.5 to 2 grams, I'm gassing it like 155. That really has a lot of pressure in there. And it doesn't, 2 grams doesn't sound like a lot of nitrogen, but it really, even at the very end, it's sputtering out. So you know that it's evacuating the whole thing. But you're always concerned about that. Yeah, I mean, you didn't get enough gas in it, you know, and that's kind of, that's why you have the check weigh system. But it's much better than the batter blaster product where I was gassing in the batter. I was gassing 5 grams in the batter, but if you decided to do it like this, or instead of this, you would get gas come out because there's headspace. So you'd leave headspace for the 5 grams of gas, but if you didn't do it correctly. Where this, doesn't matter. The piston's going to push it out any way you want. Yeah. And I had a lot of problem with that. Tim, anything? You got anything?
No. Nothing. I thought it'd be a good time to eat some more of the pancakes.
Make them up. Make them up. That's easy. I don't even have to do it anymore. It's so easy.
Even an attorney can do it. Once it's open,
it has a use by date on it. It's a use, yeah, I mean, it's a date that from date of manufacture. So, Costco has a different, sometimes we'll change it, it's an inkjet printer, and we may go to a Best Buy date, but right now, it's a use by.
Okay.
And that seems to suffice for everyone. So it's a use by date of manufacture.
And that's after it's open, correct?
Yeah. Because what you're going to do is you're going to get batter in the tip, you wash it off, put it in there. But it was formulated for 6 months. You know, so we're not seeing any growth. The only thing is lactic acid. So there's no food safety as it's going to get sick even. And that was with the organic and batter wash where we completely fortified it with calcium sorbate. A small amount, but I mean, right, you've got to control the water activity and pH. Yeah, great.
They are all 4 to 5 grams of sugar. Does it matter the flavor?
Doesn't matter the flavor, the flavor is just flavor.
Yeah, when you buy it, it's flavors.
Yeah.
I think maybe in like, getting in the next year, we'll probably, we could put out like a 6-pack thing. You know, we'll look at some fun ideas. Or maybe that'd probably go into, yeah, 1 more pack. You know, something fun like a carry case. Yeah.
The holiday, you need a holiday flavor, or
Well,
change the packaging to look like sugar cookie.
yeah, I think that we will do holiday. We're gonna approach like Costco as a holiday, like so we don't get kicked out during a certain holiday. Because my problem was Batter Blaster, they go, oh, we need the space for holiday products. But now we're just gonna go, we'll do a holiday theme.
Yeah, I don't think you need a holiday flavor though. I think you just put a holiday packaging.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah.
That would be less work for me.
Yeah. It's more work for Mark and for Jeremy.
Yeah.
You put more work in kids. Moms or cooks have enough ideas for cinnamon sticks and things to create their own Christmas ideas.
No, it's a good idea. Yeah. Definitely.
It's our new marketing director.
Still talking about it.
Pretty
Look,
good?
we haven't had a
Okay.
chance to try pancakes.
Yeah, we're gonna have 4
It really is not.
pancakes.
I
If
made-
anyone's still on from the call, thank you for joining. We're gonna sign off for now. Thanks. Thank you, guys. That's great.
That was like awesome.
Yeah.